All right, Chapter 3, Section 3 continued. This part of the notes, we're going to talk about synthetic division. So just a different way of dividing polynomials. And again, you may have done this in Algebra 2, and you might remember it. We can use this type of division if the divisor is of the form x minus c. Okay, so it's got to be grouped with x minus c. All right, now one thing you have to remember, like when you're grouped in there with x, it's kind of like using the zero product principle. The value of x would never be equal to, if it was x minus 3, for example, your 0 or your value of x solving a little baby equation, x minus 3 equals 0, it would never equal negative 3. It's always equal to the opposite of the sign. And so the same thing here with a synthetic division. To identify this value of c that we speak of, if your divisor is of the form x minus 3, which takes on this x minus c, then the value of c equals positive 3. Also, very similar when we did the equation of a circle in the center of the circle, was always the sign's opposite. Okay, so when it's grouped in there with x, then it's always the sign opposite. If my divisor is of the form x plus 3, then my c value is negative 3, right? Because this would be x minus negative 3, which turns to x plus 3. So just remember that for synthetic division, you do have to identify what your value of c is, and it's always the sign opposite when it's grouped here with the x. So I'm going to take us through this synthetic division several times. So the first time we're going to do the setup. The second time we're going to do the setup and then do this step. The third time we're going to do the setup, do the second step, and then do this step, and so on. When you do synthetic division, you would only do this one time. So this is just for illustrative purposes again. And that's why the note sheet is structured as such with these dotted lines. To use synthetic division, it's much like the long division, where you have to arrange your polynomials in order of descending powers. So make sure that you check the arrangement. And then also, you have to use a zero coefficient for any terms that might be missing. So you do need this for synthetic division as well. And then what we do, I'm going to go through this notes, body of the notes first, and then go through it step by step, over off to the right side. We're going to identify what c is, right, from x minus c, whatever we get, whether it's x minus 3, x plus 3. And we're going to write down that value of c. And then to the right of that value, we're going to write the coefficients of the dividend right next to it. We're actually going to put c in what I call a half box. So once we put c in the little half box, to the right, we're going to write the coefficients of the dividend. And then right here, this next step, it says take the leading coefficient of the dividend and record it in the bottom row. So we're actually going to make some rows and columns here. Okay, so take the leading coefficient of the dividend and record it in the bottom row. And once we do that, here comes our series of multiplications and such. We're going to take that c and we're going to multiply it by the value that we just wrote on the bottom row. You take that product, right, because you're multiplying. In the next column in the second row is where you're going to record it. Again, we're just filling these notes in. I'm going to go back and explain it. So once you have this, you have an element in the first row, you have an element in the second row. To get that element, the next element that's in the bottom row, you're going to add the values in the new column and write the sum again in the bottom row. And then, of course, we repeat the series of multiplications and additions until all columns are filled in. We'll wait to fill in number 7. Let's go through an actual physical example of this. back up to the top. So if my example is, excuse me, x minus 3 being my divisor, and my dividend being x to the power of 3, add 4x squared, subtract 5x, add 5. I need to identify what c is in my next step, and then I need to identify the coefficients. All right, so arrange polynomials in descending powers. 3, 2, 1, none. It's arranged. Am I missing any terms? Third power, nope. Cubic, quadratic, linear, constant. I'm not missing any terms, so I'm good. So now I'm going to identify what c is. The value of c here is not -3, +3. So I put it in what I call a half box. And to the right of that value, we're going to write the coefficients of the dividend. Now, folks, if there is no number in front of one of these terms, then we understand it to be a 1, right? Because if it was 0, then it wouldn't be there. Okay, so what are my coefficients? Well, I have a 1, a 4, a -5, and a +5. The signs are going to matter here. A 1, a 4, a -5, and a +5. Okay, so the first thing you do is arrange your polynomial, identify your value of c, and then copy your coefficients. After we copy the coefficients, we're going to write the leading coefficient of the dividend in the bottom row. Okay, let's pretend we're starting from scratch. My c value is 3 in the half box. I write the coefficients, 1, 4, -5, and 5. I put a tally bar. I want to leave like this second row, and I'm going to drop the leading coefficient to the bottom row. Okay, so you want to leave space so that you have 3 rows. All right, once you get to this step here, this says multiply c, all right, in this case 3, with the value that you just wrote on the bottom row. All right, let's do this one more time. What do? You identify c. After, of course, you check your arrangements and any missing terms. You write your coefficients, 1, 4, -5, 5. I drop the leader down to the bottom. And now, folks, when you are going on the diagonal, it's almost like you're making a multiplication symbol, right? The x for multiplication. Okay, so on the diagonal, you multiply, and then you come back up here in this space, and that's where you write the product. So we've got 3 times 1 is 3. And then the next step is to add the values in that new column. I'm going to add the values in this new column. And then you write the sum in the bottom row again. Okay, so here it says multiply c times the value that you just wrote on the bottom row. We did that. And put the product in the next column in the second row. We did that. Now we're going to add. All right? Well, let's pretend we're starting from scratch. Check the arrangement. Check for any missing terms. Identify your c value. Write your coefficients. 1, 4, -5, 5. Do your tally bar. Drop down. 1 times 3 is 3. Product goes here, right? On the diagonal, that's your product. Straight up and down. Straight up and down almost looks like you are making an addition symbol. Okay, so you add. 4 and 3 is 7. And then this part here says, repeat this series of multiplications and additions until all the columns are filled in. All right, so for real now, this is like we're actually going to do the problem starting from scratch. Keep in mind, I only did this to illustrate each step of the way what was happening with the body of the notes. All right, so check the arrangement of polynomial. Make sure you're not missing any terms. Identify your c value. Write down or copy your coefficients. Remember, if you're missing a term, you use a 0 coefficient. You could have zeros in here. All right, tally bar. Drop down to the lower level. Multiply on the diagonal. 3 times 1, 3. On the straight up and down, we add 7. Multiply on the diagonal, 21. Add on the straight up and down, 16. Multiply on the diagonal, 48. Add on the straight up down, 53. All right, now what do we do with this? Well, we write our quotient plus our remainder. If you recall from synthetic division, you use the numbers in the last row. Okay, right here, we're going to use those. Use the numbers in the last row to write the quotient plus the remainder above the divisor. In bold print, underlined, the degree of the first term of the quotient is 1 less than the degree of the first term of the dividend. Think about it. You're dividing out an x, so it makes sense it should bump down a power. The final value in this row is the remainder. Okay, in this case, 53. This is my remainder. Notice, we started out with x to the power of 3. The quotient, this term is going to be x squared, 1x squared. This one's linear, plus 7x. Here's my constant. And then this is my remainder. So we're going to take a little bit of space. I guess I'll write it here. Thus, comma, x to the power of 3 plus 4x squared minus 5x plus 5 divided by x minus 3 is equal to 1 x squared. Right, this started out as 3. This got to bump down a power. I'll write the 1 just for illustrative purposes. Plus 7 times x plus 16. Right, the numbers are coming from here. The remainder is 53. I always write it as plus, and then I put the remainder 53. Sometimes that's, well, no, not in synthetic division. It's not going to be a polynomial, but you do write it over your polynomial x minus 3. And that's pretty much it with synthetic division. But it is important that you check the arrangement of the terms and you properly identify what this value of c is. Okay, so there's one more example. If you like, you can pause the video and try to do it on your own. All right, so I'm going to continue. All right, use synthetic to division to divide. Oh, well, look at that. How can you pause the video and do this one if I didn't give you the divisor? Divisor is x plus 2. Okay, so now again, if you want to pause the video, you may do that and then see if you get this correct. All right, remember the first thing is to identify your value of c. My c, look, this is a quantity, right? It's not plus 2, it's minus 2. So c is negative 2. So that goes in the half box. And now I have to check my arrangement. 3, 1, and 0. The arrangement's okay, but I am missing terms. Do you know which terms I'm missing? Well, I've got a third power. There's my cube, but I am missing a quadratic term. So 3, 2, 1, none. I'm missing just a quadratic term. And so I need to put a 0 into my synthetic division here. Now remember, if there's no number there, that's a 1. Okay, you might want to rewrite it right underneath, you know, like x cubed plus 0x squared, so you can see a little better so you don't mess these up. Okay, so I've got my third power, second power, first power, no power. coefficients are 1 and then 0, -7, -6. So you'll mess the whole problem up if you don't remember to put the 0 placeholder in there. All right. The rest of it is pretty straightforward. You drop the first one down. On the diagonal, you multiply. On the straight up and down, you add. Multiply, add, multiply, add. Here we see there is a 0 remainder. Okay, no remainder. So we say thus, x to the power of 3, subtract 7x, subtract 6, divided by x plus 2, right, that's the original problem, is, started out as third power, and this bumps down to second power. X to the power of 2 minus 2x minus 3 with no remainder. This would be my answer. That's my quotient. So, if you have any questions, please let me know. Also, just like with the long division of polynomials, you know, sometimes you're going to be missing more than one term. So make sure that you have all those zeros in for your synthetic division, or you'll get the wrong answer. And to make sure the divisor is of this form. You know, if you have a 2x plus 3, then you can't use synthetic division. All right, if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Get a hold of me. Have a great day.